He was just a great guy. We had a lot of fun. In fact, I remember I came straight out and asked him one day, I said, Bill, would you be my grandfather?
Wow.
And he said, I'd love to be your grandfather. And so I remember he hugged me, and it was kind of an emotional moment because he never had kids, and I was probably as close to having a kid as he was ever going to have, although it was more like the age of a grandkid to him.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, here's something terrorizing to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm older than Bill Frawley was when he was on the show right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Things that are worth your attention.
I'm just so grateful that you joined us.
It is a pleasure.
Welcome to Media Path. I'm Louise Palanker.
And I'm Lisa Arch.
It's entirely possible that you spent 12 of your formative years watching Chip Douglas grow from a spunky little black and white blonde kid into a married man of 22 in color. Stanley Livingston played Chip, and he will join us very shortly. First, Lisa Arch, what are you recommending for us this
I didn't
week?
realize I went first this week, Louise. This
Yeah,
is
you're gonna go
exciting.
first, yeah.
Okay. The Chair Company stars Tim Robinson of I Think You Should Leave and Friendship fame as a family man who, according to IMDb, investigates a conspiracy after an embarrassing incident at work. And while this description is accurate, Louise, it in no way describes the insane twists and turns, the incredible characters, and the hilarious situations that take place in this show's first season. If you enjoy linear storytelling, dull plot lines, and normal behavior, this is definitely not the show for you. I don't want to ruin it by giving you any direct information, but my husband and I paused the show at least 100 times to marvel at a certain actor, hilarious line, or insane situation. Tim Robinson is known for his specific and unusual brand of comedy, and this show doubles down on it. The Chair Company will have you gasping for breath and throwing things at the TV while cocking your head like an RCA dog wondering what the hell is going on. It's streaming on HBO Max, and I cannot wait for season 2. Side note, if you can handle absurdist comedy and love sketch comedy, do yourself a favor and watch Tim's show I Think You Should Leave, but you might only be able to handle 1 or 2 sketches at a time.
Ooh, okay, that's very specific advice. So I started watching The Chair Company last night.
Okay.
And I kept waiting for Tim Robbins, and he wasn't making it.
Not Tim Robbins.
Okay. So but the main character,
Yes.
which I guess is Tim Robinson,
Yes.
and I maybe should know more about him. I guess it's like Seinfeld in that no one's really likable.
Boy, so sure, that is one perspective. Or you could have the perspective that everybody is immensely likable in the most insane way.
Okay.
Which is how I watched it. I can't, Louise. I told you not to start watching it because you can't just watch a piece of it.
Okay.
It is a puzzle that only comes together when you watch the whole thing. And you've got to understand you're diving into Tim Robinson's world, which is wackadoodle. And I don't use that term lightly.
No, you never have. But what you're saying to people, because I think a lot of people will try a show, and they if it's not pulling at them, they'll move on. But what you're instructing us to do is hang in there. It's worth it. You have to get into the tone and grasp it, and then you're invested.
Yes.
Okay.
And for people who enjoy partaking in cannabis, it might help.
Oh, okay. Hot tip. Well, I watched Neighbors on HBO. And this is a reality show about feuding neighbors, and I challenge anyone to watch it without a what would I do inner dialogue. The first episode features 2 Montana families. One has horses, the other just moved in and somehow hates horses. A, are you dead inside? And B, remember the part where you moved to Montana? This guy rides around on dirt bikes chasing the horses off his property, and he puts up a gate to what was once a passable road. Now both of these families come off as extreme, and neither knows how to respectfully discuss a dispute. Meanwhile, in Florida, because we'll have 2 neighbor disputes in each episode.
Okay.
So meanwhile in Florida, some fancy folks believe that they own the ocean. One of those fancy folks is a Backstreet Boy, which, I mean, caveat, he may actually own the ocean.
Sure.
So there is plenty of trash talk, online harassment, threats, and intimidation to go around. It's a 6-part series, and they may be dropping them one at a time because you know how when you go back to your show and like it gets to the end and they don't have a new episode, so they serve up something else, and you're just like, wait, have they changed the name of the show? What is happening? So it starts showing me something called Residential Rage. And I'm like, ooh, rebranding. So I'm watching and I'm thinking, okay, this is a different tone. There's a lot of like ring camera violence, caught on tape, like a very dark version of America's Funniest Home Movies. And there's porch pirates and brawls and generalized thuggery caught on camera. There is one instance where a downstairs neighbor chopped his way into the apartment above him and then pepper sprayed the lady who lives there. If your tenant applicant fills out his occupation as ICE, maybe think twice. So finally last night I get to episode 2 of Neighbors,
yes,
which turns out still has the same name. This one involves 2 instances of menagerie invasion. Imagine a cat lady with a cat zoo next door, like she's got like 100 cats, and or a neighbor who installs a ramshackle zoo on a suburban street, including goats, pigs, chickens, and additional livestock. And if there's a rooster in, then just like I'm out, okay? Because, I'm a night owl.
Right.
So I don't know what's going to happen next on Neighbors, but it's all going on, and they have captured it all on tape.
2 things.
Yeah.
Not joking.
Right.
My entire plan tonight is to have a glass of wine and watch those first 2 episodes.
Oh, okay.
Secondly,
right.
It feels from the description and from the previews I have seen that the Chair Company and Neighbors make a good team.
Okay.
Yeah.
You could pair them.
Yep.
All right. We're going to introduce our guest. Stanley Livingston already had 11 film and TV credits to his credit when he was cast as Chip Douglas on My Three Sons, a role he played for 12 years. A talent scout discovered Stan at a pool, and he immediately began booking roles. Now, according to the internet, Stan, you worked on Lassie as a double for Jon Provost. Were you the stunt double?
Yes, actually, I was his stunt double on the first episode that Jon Provost appeared in. If you watched Lassie, then you probably know there was an original cast. The young boy there was Tommy Reddick and his family. And when he got too old, that family moved out of the farmhouse. They brought a new family in, June Lockhart, Jon Provost, and they began to live in the farm. And Lassie stayed behind. Tommy Reddick gave Jon Provost Lassie, so the show could continue to be called Lassie, of course. There was an episode where he in that particular episode he ran away, and I don't remember how it happened, but he fell into a pond or a creek or something.
Oh, that too.
And was out there flailing around, supposed to be drowning. Anyway, John didn't swim, and I did. So somebody knew about me and recommended me for John's double and his stunt man.
Well, Stan, you were discovered
out and did it.
You were discovered at a pool. So,
I was, yeah.
Well, this kid can swim. Yeah.
Swam my way into the industry.
Swam your way into show business.
I love the idea of a child stunt double, as if like this kid we have to protect. So let's get this kid in to do the crazy stunts.
Yeah.
And Stan get mauled by wolves.
In those days, there were a lot of little people that did those kind of jobs. A lot of the either stunt people or the doubles. And, they would hire dwarfs, midgets to replicate us, and figured, well, something happens to them, no big deal. So, but yeah, they put my life on the line, and I actually got out there in the middle of the pond and was supposed to look like I was drowning. I went down underwater a couple times and came up. And one of the times I went down, my feet got stuck in the muck that was at the bottom of this probably 200-year-old pond. And I couldn't break loose for a minute. I thought I was never coming up again.
Oh.
Anyway, when I came up, I guess it looked very real that I was drowning, because I was.
Like, what an actor.
That's terrifying.
It was pretty terrifying. They didn't mention the part about the muck.
Oh, my gosh. Well, that brings up a question that I was going to ask you way later, but at that time, were your parents on set?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my mom was there, especially in those days. Early on, she was the one that drove me, to the interviews and there were any lines that I would have, she would do the lines with me out in the hallway, and I'd go back in and try and get the job. So I guess it was her idea. I'm sure it wasn't my idea. You know, what kid is sitting around, you know, we're usually playing baseball and go, hey, you know, I think I want to be an actor. Somebody drive me over to a studio. So she was the one, I'm sure, that was behind my early days.
Well, she has a little bit of a show business history, doesn't she, your mom?
She does. It's a little bit on the tawdry side.
That's why I'm asking.
Okay, yeah. She met my dad in Baltimore, and she ran away from Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, when she was about 16, 17, wanted to go to the big city, and I don't know why Baltimore sounded exciting to her, but it did. And my grandfather owned 2 burlesque theaters there, and she applied for a job and became a burlesque dancer in probably both theaters. And it was at that theater she met my dad, who was recalled from New York, where he was going to NYU to become a psychiatrist. And anyway, family business came first. And so he came home to try and help with the business. I think my grandfather's health was failing at that point in time. And they met, fell in love. It was during the war years, and the war finally ended in 46. They lasted a couple more years in Baltimore and decided to move to the Golden State, California. And 2 years later, I came along.
So was your mom a fan dancer?
Yeah, I guess that's what you would call it. I mean, you know, it wasn't quite like what they would have, you know, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, probably even now. You know, there was some artistry to it. In fact, burlesque is known as the one, what do they call it? The one American art form. But, you know, that came out of British theater, just took it to the next level, I guess. Mm-hmm. And Baltimore was filled with sailors in those days. So what better way to get sailors come in than half-naked women?
I think it's a decent plan, or an indecent plan.
Exactly.
That was the other reason they moved to California. And my mom was a little older by then and didn't want anybody to know what she had done in a prior life. I mean, she did it to make money, and she would send money home to her mother in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. And lo and behold, she was trying to erase history the whole time. You know, I was in show business. We were told never mention what mom did. Well, we didn't really know. We were told she was a dancer. So I'm thinking, you know, Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers type dancing.
How fascinating.
I thought it was kind of cool later.
It's super cool.
It is cool. I wish there had been some TikTok, you know, so we had some record of it.
Exactly.
But
I actually found some record of her on the internet. I searched in Baltimore and for the Globe and Clover Theater. And I don't know why the name stuck in my head, but when I looked this name up, which was one of her aliases, it was Marilyn Primrose. And that name came up.
That's so cool.
I thought it was really cute when you were here with Barry and you both were like, well, we were just told she was a dancer. And like, technically she was, because those girls, they were talented. You had to be good.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there were, I've actually thought about doing this as a film. The burlesque theater was like an incredible experience for anybody that worked there. And, you know, all my grandfather's sons, of which my dad was one, came of age while he owned this burlesque theater. So, you know, I guess there were a lot of fringe benefits to that.
Ooh, and lots of fringe. And also
and snakes. Well, I went back to that club. Oh. So it was probably in the mid 1980s or late 1980s, down on what's called the Block, the notorious Block in Baltimore, where, you know, that's where all those clubs used to be, and theaters and strippers and you name it, it was there. Mm-hmm. And my dad's club, which I believe was called the Globe or the Clover, I can't remember which one, was still there. It was now called Club Miami. So my uncle and I, we walked in. I had to walk in it. I mean, I just had to go in. And, you know, it was midday, so there was like nobody in there, but they had it was like a bar, like an extra wide bar. And then there was a pole. So it became like a pole dancing place, is what it was at that time. And underneath it was another notorious nightclub that Blaze Star owned, called the 2 O'Clock Club. So that was there even, I believe, towards the end of my grandfather's reign of terror, I guess, with those two theaters on that block.
Wow.
But the two o'clock club became quite famous.
That is a rich history.
That's fascinating to me.
I was just going to ask if when you found yourself on these sets and being asked, to step into a puddle, were you thinking, this is cool, this is fun, or were you thinking you would rather be somewhere else?
No, I was really into it. I knew I wanted to be in show business. I guess all my life. How it started was when I was in, I guess that would have been not kindergarten, I guess. I went to Gardner Street Elementary School in Hollywood, and they had an auditorium there. In fact, later the auditorium became the Michael Jackson Auditorium for a while. But they would put on shows, and I didn't really care about math and vocabulary and ABCs. I wanted to be in those shows, so I volunteered all I could to be in them. And I thought it was fun to dress up. One time I was a policeman, another time I was a milkman, and got to do all sorts of things on stage. So I was sort of hooked. And anytime there was anything having to do with music or singing, by then I guess I was at Vine Street Elementary School. My hand always shot up first, and I volunteered for those shows to be in them. And I think one of them was a Christmas show I was the MC of. So my parents, I think, saw that in me, that I had sort of a larger than life personality back then, and wasn't intimidated by getting up in front of a room full of people and doing crazy stuff, saying lines. And as luck would have it, we were going to a swim school in Hollywood. It was called the Jen Levin Swim School. And the lady, Jen Levin, was very entrepreneurial. Besides just having the swim school, she tried to think of all kinds of weird things to get publicity, to get people to come there. And she had a porthole cut in the side of the pool, about a 4-foot porthole with glass. And there were a set of stairs, and outside the pool, photographers could go down those stairs and look underwater. And she would have these kids, including me, riding bicycles. There'd be a swing, a car, and we'd do all these crazy things. A telephone, like we were talking to people, but it all happened underwater. So because of that, she achieved her goal of getting a lot of people to bring their children there to learn how to swim, including Hollywood-type people, agents, actors' kids, directors' kids. And there was an agent that saw me, and like I said, I was pretty precocious and had blonde hair and was kind of what TV was looking for in those days. And she kept after my mom, thought I'd make a good candidate to be a child actor. And finally, my mom relented and gave her a chance to see what she could do. And she was, in the beginning, you can't expect a lot. He's probably going to be an extra a few times, but that's good for him because he'll get used to working around other kids and working in front of a camera, working with adults and directors. So that's exactly what happened. I did quite a few jobs where I didn't have any lines. I was just an extra, but I found it exhilarating to be on the set, and naturally I wanted to have lines, and that's how it went for a while until I did an Ozzie and Harriet, and I was hired as an extra there. And Ozzie was, he's pretty into the little kids that he hired to be on the show. We were just like neighborhood kids, and for whatever reason he took a liking to me, and he was shooting an episode where they had Christmas trees in the backyard that he was selling to make extra money. And I guess the gag was he's showing a prospective client, and out comes 8 little kids with backpacks, sleeping bags. And, we come parading out of this forest of trees, walk by him. Anyway, he got the idea and came up to me and he said, "Hey, son, come here." And I went over and he said, "Could you say this line?" And I didn't even know what he meant. He goes, "I'll just say what I'm going to tell you to say." So he told me what to say. And he goes, "I'm going to put an X on the floor right here. When you get right to that X, don't look down at it. Be looking at me. And I want you to say, 'Sure is mighty good camping in there, Mr. Nelson,' and then turn and go." So I followed his direction, I guess, to a T, and delivered the line, turned and went. And somewhere after that, he came up to my mom and said, "Could you please leave your contact information with my secretary in the front office? I want to have Stanley back again."
How old were you at that time?
I was about 6.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So between the end of 1956 to just the beginning of 1960, I did about 15 episodes as a neighborhood kid on Ozzie and Harriet. So that got me kind of a recurring role, which was unusual in those days, except for Ozzie and Harriet kind of I kept having some of those people come back. He also used your real name. My name was Stanley on the show, and they even used Livingston as the last name. So that was kind of unusual too, because normally you would have a character name.
Right.
But
There were other kids there, and it was so much fun. And he was very easygoing guy as a director. I later came across other type of directors. I started doing movies in the 1950s. In addition to Ozzie and Harriet, I did Rally Around the Flag Boys. I did Please Don't Eat the Daisies. The Dorothy, what was it called? Bonnie and Clyde. There was a version of that called the Bonnie Parker story. Yeah.
But if you think about it, Stan, they all went by their own names too. They were all Ozzie.
Yes.
Harriet,
The entire Nelson. Yeah. That's kind of what it was. If you worked on your show, they used your real name, and that's how it was, which, it became a little bit weird when I started working other places, and then you're suddenly playing some other person who has another name other than you were. So when I did Rally Around the Flag Boys, I kind of got my taste of we had Leo McMurray was the director of that, who was a huge director in Hollywood. And in fact, he's the guy that put Laurel and Hardy together.
Wow.
I guess he worked with the two of them separately and decided they would make a great team and combine them on film together. And you saw what happened to their careers. That worked out pretty swell.
That is some solid matchmaking.
But he was a little crankier than Ozzie. So he had tendency to yell a little bit. So you had to learn that, not to take it personally, but some of these people are, very impatient, especially around kids.
So that's
kids are distracted.
Right. And that's such a great point because, as an older actor, even, teenager, 20s and beyond, if you are yelled at by a director or even heavily reprimanded, it can really affect you emotionally and your ability to continue on with your day of work. How is that for a kid when something like that happens?
Well, I did have a few directors that were kind of that way. And when I came off, my mom would explain, he just does that. He's doing it with everybody. It doesn't really mean anything. That's just kind of his personalities. And as I worked more and more, you realize there's people out there, especially in the industry, that are like that. I mean, Lee McMurray was nothing compared to Henry Hathaway. Oh my God! When I did a film called How the West Was Won,
right?
And on that, Henry Hathaway was the director of the portion of the film that I was in. It was divided in 3 portions. And the last portion was directed by Henry. And my dad was George Papard. Carolyn Jones was my mom. I had some scenes with Eli Wallach. So it was another, really great experience. But Henry Hathaway he really had a foul mouth. And he didn't care whether you were a kid or an adult, man. He would just rattle off a machine gun worth of expletives. And, you didn't know how to take it. I mean, some people, would break down and cry.
I'm sure.
It was unnerving. And I'm talking about grown men. However, there was somebody on the set that wasn't at all disturbed by him and would give it right back to him. Was Debbie Reynolds.
Really?
She wasn't going to put up with his stuff. And when he would yell at her, she would yell right back and, use 4-letter words. And, they would have some words. But, I remember there was a day where I don't know whether he was just mad at me or just having a bad day. I mean, I found out later, too. I didn't know this at the time because I was only 13, 14. Apparently, he was having medical problems going on that were very painful, so he might not have been in the best mood anyway. But we were shooting in Arizona, and it was a scene where there was a train, an old-time train coming, and we were walking across the railroad track to the station, and the train was getting pretty close. And he gave me the direction to stop and put a belt buckle that I was holding on the track so the train could run over it. And I remember at that point, I was so afraid of him that the train was coming and I couldn't get the belt buckle out of my pocket. Was hung up, and I'm pulling on it and pulling on it. Meanwhile, this train's barreling down on me, and I finally got it out. And as I was bending over to put it down, George Papard came out of nowhere and swooped me out of the way of the train. I mean, I think I would rather have been hit by the train than to be yelled at by Henry Hathaway. So that'll tell you about, where it was at.
Wow.
But the funny part was, at lunchtime, I don't remember if that particular day, but there was another day where he was really yelling at me. And on the lunch break, I started to walk away to go back to where my mom was and go eat lunch. And he said, come back here. And I went back over to him. He says, I want to take you out to lunch. So I guess I did something to please him. And all I remember is, I don't want to go with you. That's kind of what the inside of me was saying. I didn't know what he was going to do to me. And so he went over to my mom. He said, I'm going to be taking Stanley into town for lunch, and, we'll be back in an hour. So, my mom, of course, she, what could she say? This guy's running the set, and, like God. So I got in the car with him, and we were driven into, where were we? Prescott, Arizona. And we had lunch together. And, he was just like a completely different guy. It was like being with like Fred McMurray or something, where he's just talking to you and, asking me all kinds of stuff about my life and what I like to do and all that. And I thought, gee, maybe he finally got over the hump, isn't going to yell at me anymore. And it suddenly turned into this nice guy. And I remember we finished lunch, and he says, do you know if there's a toy store in this town? I said, yeah, I think I saw one around the corner. So he goes, let's go over there. So we walked into a toy store, and he goes, I want you to pick out whatever you want, anything you want. I don't care what it is. And so he says, well, what do you like? And I said, well, I like rocks. I'm collecting rocks right now and Indian arrowheads. And so the guy behind the counter said, well, we have this. And it was like a display case that looked like a big book where you could shut it and open it like that. It was about 4 feet high, and each side was like 2 feet. And there were rows. I mean, it must have been like 100, 200 rocks, and there were gemstones and crystals and all that. And he says, do you like that? And I'm like, I knew it was pretty big, so it probably had to be expensive. So I said, yeah. And so he goes, okay. So he bought it. It was probably like $200, and this is back in 62, 63. So that was a lot of money. And we came back to the set. And I put it in my dressing room, showed my mom, and I was really excited about it. And I thought, but I mean, mainly what I'm thinking is I think he's okay with me now. And, we weren't going to do that. Anyway, well, I was wrong.
Oh, no.
15 minutes later, I got into makeup to go start shooting again, came out on the set, and we did a couple takes. And man, he just like lit at me, you little son of a.
Oh my God.
It's just, I'm going, oops, I guess I calculated wrong.
It seems like maybe that was just a guilt gift for almost killing you by train, but he wasn't going to change his behavior.
Yeah. And like I said, I finally did figure out he was just talking to everybody that way. That's just him. And, what you had to learn is not to take any of that, personally. And in a way, it makes you more professional, to be able to work with a guy like that. Because I had to learn how to work with that guy and not take it. And I think at some point I probably said something back to him, and I think he liked it that I, didn't put up with his crap and was talking back, was just pushing to see where your line was, like he did with Debbie. But Debbie wasn't going to take a second of it, and the crew guys, they really took it. And I mean, this guy's pretty outrageous. And he like punched somebody one time.
Oh my God.
He like shot people with like blanks and stuff. So it's like, I don't want to get shot by a blank.
He's a hothead.
I didn't even know what a blank was then. I thought I was really going to be shot.
So when you got on My Three Sons and worked for several years with William Frawley, and then there was the big bill off of 65, 66 or what have you. So describe that, because from what I've read on the internet, Frawley didn't really want to leave, but he was dealing with some issues. And
I sure didn't want him to leave.
No, you guys loved him. So talk about that a little bit for us.
Yeah, we were basically, I didn't know either of my grandfathers, and they were both dead by the time I came around. So I felt kind of gypped that I didn't have a grandfather, and all my friends had one. So And I knew who William Frawley was because I used to play hooky from school and tell my parents I didn't feel well so I could watch I Love Lucy.
Of course.
And so I could watch the show. And he was my favorite character.
Yeah.
And then I found out after I was cast very early. I was the second person cast after Fred McMurray, who the show was built around. And anyway, found out he was going to be the grandfather. So I was so looking forward to that and couldn't wait. And, but I was kind of warned he didn't really like kids that much or animals, didn't like working with them. But I kind of made it my mission to win him over.
Oh.
And and I think I did because we hung out like so much. I mean, whenever I wasn't in school on the set and I had free time, I'd go to Bill's dressing room on the set and, we play cards and checkers. And after work, sometimes he would take me to baseball games, to Dodger games. And we just bonded. And I ate lunch with him almost every day at Nicodell's. And he had a booth there that they had reserved for him at the back of Nicodell's. And I was
Where was
next to him.
Right
Right across from Paramount?
Nicodell's, it was
Okay.
right literally outside of Paramount's gate at that time.
Okay.
You know where KHJ is, the radio station there?
yeah.
Right on Melrose?
Melrose, yeah.
So it was a couple doors east of that.
Okay.
And, eventually Paramount bought it and turned it into a parking lot.
Oh.
And I don't know whether the guys that owned it were, kind of saying, I think we should get out of here. It's a good time to retire. But we were there every day. And, even after my three sons stopped in we stopped shooting in Desilu, I guess around 66, 67. But my family continued to go to Nicodell's literally till the moment it stopped, till it closed. So, it was a great family restaurant, and continued to go there. So I was with Bill, and Bill and I were fast friends.
Closer with you than the other kids?
Yeah, Tim and Don was 16 when he was hired, so by then he was probably about 20, and Tim was already getting ready to leave the show, so he was going to be 23, 24. So, they like Bill, but these are young guys. They're trying to meet girls. That's kind of what you're doing. It was slightly before I was. So, he was just a great guy. We had a lot of fun. In fact, I remember I came straight out and asked him one day, I said, Bill, would you be my grandfather?
Wow.
And he said, I'd love to be your grandfather. And so I remember he hugged me, and it was kind of an emotional moment because he never had kids, and I was probably as close to having a kid as he was ever going to have, although it was more like the age of a grandkid to him.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, here's something terrorizing to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm older than Bill Frawley was when he was on the show right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
so if I got cast, I would be Bub.
I think you're taking better care of yourself.
For sure.
So that's good.
I've got a better wig than he does. No.
And so when he was asked to step away and Bill Demarest came in, like, how did you kids feel? How did you feel? What was the dynamic like?
Yeah, there was some tension there for me. I found out that he didn't come back because he was having heart problems, and they didn't want to have him come back. So it wasn't like he didn't want to come back. The decision was made from just purely a business standpoint. They couldn't get insurance for him, and they were afraid to start shooting episodes. And had we shot like any other show in Hollywood, which you shoot an episode a week and then you go to the next episode and the next one, we didn't do that. We shot little bits and pieces in maybe 4 or 5 different episodes every single day. And, at some point in time, we'd have enough so they could edit a whole show together. So that would have meant Bill would have been dispersed across maybe 10, 20 shows, little bits and pieces, but not maybe the whole thing. And if he passed away, they wouldn't have been able to finish those episodes. They would have had to rewrite them or take him out and replace him. So it was just decided that year he wasn't coming back after he got the health report. And, they decided to go with somebody else, which happened to be William Demarest. So that was strange for me. I was I don't want to say I was mad at him, but I wasn't happy about him taking my friend's job. So it's sort of like I didn't want to like him. And it took a while to warm up, because I was just 14, maybe 15. And it just seemed weird to me. But Bill eventually won me over and found out he was, a lot like Bill Frawley, cut from the same cloth, as they say, and playing the same sort of character. And he was a real gentleman. He was probably, if I had to compare the two, Bill Frawley was more like what you saw on TV in real life, kind of cantankerous and, loud and kind of some colorful words. Bill Demarest wasn't like that. That was the character he played. And in between, he was just a regular guy, That was just a role he was playing. That's how he played it, and all that. But he wasn't anything like that.
Yeah.
He was just, normal. And I guess as I got as I became used to doing different shows and movies and things like that, you would see that in people that, they're just playing a part and that's it. And most of the time, the people they're playing on screen is nothing like what they are in real life. So
Do you mind?
I liked both of them in retrospect, but I was probably closer to Bill because I was younger and wanted a grandfather, and he said yes. So it's like, okay, I give you me.
Oh, I love that.
That really is such a sweet story.
That's very sweet. Thanks for coming along down the media path, and however you have found your way to us, we would love for you to like and subscribe and give us a nice review, because as creators, it is our appointed duty to ask you to do that. You may also want to find us on Instagram and Blue Sky, where we are at Media Path Pod, and on Facebook, where our show page is Media Path Podcast, and our Facebook group is Media Path with Fritz and Wheezy Podcast Community. If you are listening to our show, we are also a video podcast on YouTube at Media Path Podcast. You can write to us at MediaPathPodcast@gmail.com. My TikTok is Louise Palanker, where I post behind the scenes peeks and clips from the show. And Fritz's TikTok is Fritz Coleman Comedy. He posts stand-up clips and popular dance crazes. Our website is MediaPathPodcast.com. There you can binge episodes and our spicy newsletter. Thank you so much. On with the rest of the show.
Well, I'll tell you what's really sweet is on my 14th birthday, I think it was, we went out to Nicodel's for lunch, and Bill had a cake arranged to be brought out to me at the end of the lunch and saying happy birthday and all that. But when I got back to the studio, my dressing room was upstairs. It was above the makeup room in a fake set behind a wall there. And when I opened the door and went into my dressing room, there was a 9-foot Dewey Weber surfboard there. Wow. And it said to Chip from Uncle Bill.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, imagine that this guy didn't drive. And, he's in his 70s. It's like, which tells me he was listening to me, what I was into and how he remembered Dewey Weber. I have no idea. And he didn't have a car. So how the heck that surfboard ever came back to the studio and got up in my dressing room? He sure surprised the heck out of me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's a way to make a kid feel pretty special.
That's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah,
you're not kidding.
No.
I mean, somebody that age and whatever, I'm sure was probably busy or doing whatever. Could have just said, here's $20, happy birthday. So to go to that length, to show me what he thought about me, I never forgot it.
How special you are. Well, during the years that the Douglas family lived in Bryant Park, you shot exteriors on Fifth Avenue in Los Angeles. Do you have any memories of how the neighbors, felt about you guys being there, or what that was like?
I don't remember any problems. They probably had a financial deal with the house that they selected to be the My Three Sons house, at least on the real street. And then we had a double of that house on the sound stage. We were in an enormous sound stage at RKO, and they built the whole front of this 2-story house on the stage, the driveway, the house part of the house next door. And I remember we go up. We never really were allowed to go in it, so we'd always kind of have our hand on the doorknob, like we just pulled the door shut. So when they would cut to it, it looked like we just came out if they had a shot of us going out the door from the set in the living room. So, but you would see tons and tons of people on the street come out of their homes or come from a couple blocks away to watch the filming. So kids and, adults all curious. And I guess in the beginning too, in 1960s, or especially 1960. TV was still fairly new, a 10-year-old medium, and, to have it come to your neighborhood and seeing all the equipment and the lamps, the lights, the, camera dollies, it was pretty impressive. I guess by then it didn't mean anything to me. It was just, that's where we were. In fact, I preferred it. I like whenever we went on location and shot there, we would shoot above Beverly Hills. There was a lake there with pine trees all around it that we would always shoot when we went camping or fishing or had some outdoor thing. In fact, it's the same lake that you see at the beginning of Andy, what was it? Not Mayberry.
Andy Griffith Show.
Andy Griffith Show. Yeah, that lake that they're walking next to. Everybody used to shoot right there. So that was a pretty cool place to shoot.
Yeah, I think that's off Laurel Canyon. What's that park up there? Where
I think it's off of Coldwater Canyon.
Yeah. Okay.
Just west of Coldwater Canyon.
Oh, that's so.
But a lot of films have been shot there. I mean, movies too, and we shot at Bronson Caves a couple times when they needed a cave exterior, and we shoot different places. We shot at LAX one time. I think there was a storyline where I stowed away on a plane and ended up in Paris.
Oh my gosh.
And we shot down at LAX airport with a big Boeing 707 jet. And I remember thinking, it's so cool. I got to go through the jet and got to sit in the pilot seat and all that kind of stuff in between. But I loved it. The soundstage is kind of boring.
Yeah, I'm sure next to that. You mentioned shooting out of sequence, and I saw this, and I think it's so fascinating. So as you said, most sitcoms, they shoot each sitcom one by one, and they shoot it in order, and then you're done. But I guess Fred McMurray requested or insisted that this show was shot out of order, so you would do all the kitchen scenes at once and then all the Chip's bedroom scenes at once. Why did he want it that way? And I can't imagine how complicated that was for wardrobe and set deck and all of that.
Yeah. Well, Fred didn't, that wasn't his idea. I think that's how they enticed him to come to work and do a TV series. You have to remember in 1959, 1960, who Fred McMurray was. He was the biggest star in Hollywood, making the most amount of money. He could have done anything he wanted, but he and June adopted twins, and he was kind of tired of going on the road. He just had come back from doing The Absent-Minded Professor, The Cane Mutiny, The Apartment. So you're gone a lot, and you don't see your kids grow up. So whatever reason, he, I think, was open to an idea. And Don Fedderson is really the guy that I guess came up with this. He said, look, we shoot movies and we shoot out of sequence all the time. What if we just concentrate on Fred's stuff? So he's there for maybe 2 or 3 months, and he's in every scene. So he works for 3 months. And when he goes away, we shoot all the other parts that he's not in. And they kind of pitched him on that idea. And Fred knew what they were talking about, because it's just, you see that in movies a lot. TV shows are different. You would shoot an episode for a week, generally because it had the same director. And then while that director is directing that episode, there's another director preparing next week's show. And then he comes in and he's working with the same cast, but it's just a different director. In this case, because of the complexity of the shooting schedule, they knew they were going to have to go with a singular director for all. I think the first year we did 38, 39 episodes. So it was a lot more episodes done in those days. They pitched to him and said, you probably won't work much more than 65 days. And then at the end, you'll probably have to come back for another 2 months. And we'll shoot everything around you. And then you come back for all the stuff we didn't shoot, and we finish off the year. So he decided to do that. The other thing was he would only work till 6 o'clock. And I think after the first year or so, he wanted to go home at 5. So no matter what we were doing at 5 o'clock, he would just get up and walk out. And
wow,
that was it for the day. And then he was gone for 3 months. with his kids and his wife for the summer, and would go to their ranch in Montana, and he owned property, vineyard up in Northern California. So yeah, it was like the seven dwarfs were down there toiling while he was out having fun. That was what I did for 12 years. That's how it was shot, and that's how they accommodated him. He owned half the show with Don Feddersen, in addition to an enormous salary. So yeah, it's how you get a major movie star. Would have been kind of like, I don't know, I guess he's still as popular as he ever was, but like Tom Cruise to say, I want to do a series and I don't want to go away because I got kids and, I don't want to abandon them. But you go, wait a minute, you got Tom Cruise to say yes to do a series? Well, that's kind of how it was with Fred McMurray. Nobody, especially at the network level, could believe they had Fred McMurray, this huge movie star, agreeing to do the daily grind of a TV series. So.
And how would you describe your relationship with Fred McMurray?
Yeah, it was always good. He's a very friendly guy. It's not like we palled around. I mean, I was 10, so who was going to pal around with me? My only regret was I wasn't older, that I wasn't 20 then, so you could have kind of more of an adult relationship with him. And it wasn't really till the last year, maybe last 2 years of the show, where we were kind of more on an adult level. And I was starting to, do Hollywood type things where I would run into Fred at functions and could go up to him and, stand there and talk to him or eat dinner with him occasionally. And he was just a very, very nice guy. I mean, for a movie star of his level, he was very unassuming. And, you hear about movie stars that are crazy and, drive Lamborghinis. Fred drove a Pontiac station wagon.
Love it.
Movie stars go to the best restaurants in town, and Fred brought a brown paper bag lunch that June had made. So I don't think he was trying to save money. It just was him. I just think that was really who he was. He was just this guy from Wisconsin that came to town with a bunch of buddies. He brought his clarinet or whatever he had, and he lucked out, got into a band, and somebody saw him, thought he was a good-looking guy, and put him in a movie, and things worked out right. But, he was still that same guy that came from Wisconsin. He just never really changed. He was very low-key and charming.
Did you remember Tina Cole from her earlier appearances when they cast her to be Katie?
I don't really. I know she did. I can't say I remember because Tina's, I think she's 6 years older than me. So more than likely she was dating Don or Tim. Probably Don, because they were almost the same age, if I remember right.
Yeah, she says
she played somebody else, but was on the show.
Right.
And I probably wasn't in those scenes. And it was a couple of years before I was noticing women. When I was 10, I was still building models in my dressing room, trying to blow things up with firecrackers, and riding bicycles and crashing through backdrops and stuff.
All right. Well, we have a little game. Yeah, we have two games, but one is called IMDb Roulette. We're going to go through it real quickly because you already talked about a lot of these appearances, but we've spun the giant IMDb wheel that is your acting career, and we arrive first at the Bonnie Parker story. Underneath the title, the slugline is Cigar-Smoking Hellcat of the Roaring 30s. So they even took like what the 20s were called and applied it to the 30s for the sake of selling this film. So tell us, you are credited as Little Boy.
Yes. I remember that part very well.
What happens?
Well, Bonnie and Clyde and their accomplices are in some farmhouse somewhere. I guess they spent the night and their car's parked in front. And they decide they got to get out of there and go to the next town and rob a bank. Anyway, they all come out, get in the car, and there's no car keys.
Uh-oh.
And then all of a sudden you hear a voice go, "Stick 'em up." And it cuts over to the side of the house, and I got my finger out like that. And I'm the voice that said, "Stick 'em up." And what Clyde starts to jump out of the car. He's ready to kill me. And Bonnie calms him down, comes up to me and says, "Oh, did you take the keys?" And he goes, "Yeah, I got the keys." And she goes, "Well, how about I trade you the keys for a stick of chewing gum?" And I was like, I guess you're all right. So she digs in her purse, pulls out a stick of gum, trades me for the car keys. And meanwhile, I have these guys, Clyde and I forgot the other guy's name. They're standing there like this with their hands up. And he's finally, what am I doing? Puts his hands back. It was a pretty funny scene, actually. And anyway, I trade the car keys, Clyde's car keys, give them back to Bonnie, and she's real nice. Anyway, the actress was Dorothy Provine. Mm-hmm. I don't know how far back TV you remember, but she was kind of a blonde bombshell in the Marilyn Monroe vein. And for a while, she was very popular. She had a series back then, too. In fact, it could have been a roaring 20s, 30s type of show. And I think another one was called Kodiak or something. I think it took place in Alaska. And yeah, she's very pretty. Oh my gosh, I still remember the way she looks. And even at 10, or not 10, I was probably 7 then. I remember the way she looked. She was startlingly beautiful.
Or at least
yeah, that was Bonnie and Clyde. I never saw it because what happened was it was AIP. We all know who AIP, Roger Corman. And anyway, they made 2 gangster films. One of them was the Bonnie Parker story. The other was Machine Gun Kelly with Charles Bronson. And when my parents took me to see the movie so I could see myself, we went to a theater about 9:00 at night. And I guess they didn't look correctly. The first movie on was Machine Gun Kelly. And about, 9:30, 10 o'clock, I fell asleep. So they stayed and watched the movie. And I never saw it till, probably decades later because I don't remember seeing it on TV.
Wow. What's it like? I'm sorry, because I know we have another IMDb credit, but what is it like as an older, as you got older, watching yourself as a child?
It's kind of surreal. I mean, I don't do it a lot. I didn't even watch My 3 Sons.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's sort of like, well, who wants to go back to the job and watch yourself on the job you just did? It's like, especially if you're like a clerk or something in a supermarket, would you want to watch video of that later?
Louise and I watch this podcast over and over again. We love watching ourselves.
Well,
I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
You can learn things from it. In the beginning, it's probably good. And I probably did see some of my Ozzie and Harriets. Just to see how I looked or if I could do something different or if I was doing anything wrong. By My 3 Sons, I'd already done, like I said, 4, 5, 6 movies, I guess. And I don't know how many TV shows. I was almost Dennis the Menace. That was another one of my little footnotes. It was me, Jay North, and I can't remember the other guy's name. I think it was Stanley Fafara. We were like the 3 guys that they had narrowed it down to. And somehow I remember it was a real tragedy. I didn't get it. And Jay North got it. And I remember being real upset and all that. But,
things work out.
Had I got Dennis the Menace, I wouldn't have got My 3 Sons. Dennis the Menace ran, I think, 5 years, 7 years, something. My 3 Sons went on for 12. And right at the beginning of My 3 Sons, I almost didn't do My 3 Sons. I had just done a pilot called Skippy for Jackie Cooper, which he produced, directed, and wrote for me. And I think he was hoping I would have the same luck he did. He got nominated for an Academy Award, but this was a TV pilot. And it never really I don't think it never sold, but it was a great piece of film on me because I was the star of it, had, literally 60-70% of the dialogue and showed me all the different stuff I could do as an actor, crying scenes, all kinds of things. But the reel is what was important because the reel was shown to other people, and that's how I ended up with My 3 Sons. Is my agent sent that reel over to Don Feddersen, and the next day I got hired, almost sight unseen.
It all overlaps.
Yep.
All the threads. So when you're doing things, you don't know where they're going to lead. At least at the beginning of your career. I can't say that so much now, but who knows?
Who knows is right.
That's a fun part of show business. You never know who's going to call you or saw something in you and wanted you to do something different. So,
well, tell us about Rally Round the Flag Boys with Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward.
Well, that was kind of fun. I mean, I have to say, early in your career, you have no idea who movie stars are. They're just the adults in the film that you're going to be working with. So they didn't mean anything to me. But I got cast as to play Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward's oldest son in that. And I remember when we went on the interview, my mom, because we didn't have a babysitter, used to bring my brother Barry along, and he'd be in the outer room waiting for me to come out. So I came out. We were sitting there waiting. They asked me to wait, and I guess they were deciding whether they wanted me or not. And anyway, a few minutes later, the casting person came out and said, "Okay, you got the part, so that's great." And who's this other little kid here? And my mom said, "Well, that's Barry. That's Stan's little brother." And they go, "Oh, well, we're looking for a little brother. Maybe he could be the little brother. Is he an actor?" My mom went, "Uh-huh." He'd never done anything. And so they hired Barry, too. So it was the first time Barry and I worked together. But when it came to shooting the scene, Barry and I were supposed to be focused on a TV set, which is kind of next to the camera. And in the background, Paul Newman walks in the door, comes up and says, "Hey, boys, how you doing?" All that. And our direction was, don't look at him, don't talk to him. No matter what he says to you, you watch the TV set, ignore it. And so that's what we did. And we did it a couple times. And then the director came up to my brother and said, "It doesn't look like you're looking at the TV set. You're looking over here. I can see your eye is looking over there." So we shot it again and again. And this guy was, like I said, he was getting kind of crabby about it. And anyway, he kind of started to blow his top. And anyway, it was noon. So we had the lunch hour and they took Barry to an optometrist. Well, it turned out Barry had a crossed eye. So to him, he was looking at the TV set. To the point of view from the camera, it looked like he was, looking over there somewhere.
Oh.
And by 1 o'clock, he was fired and replaced by another kid. Yeah.
That's just how it works. But Barry now says when they got him into glasses, that he was the prototype nerd boy.
Amazing.
Well, had he not done this movie, he wouldn't have. Well, he might have got glasses at some point, but this is what caused him to get glasses. And, most kids kind of look like me. And, until Barry put his glasses on, we look similar. But yeah, that broke new ground. And, he was just as cute as a button with the glasses on.
I love it.
And slightly buck teeth. He was like amazing looking. And there weren't kids that looked like him. They all looked like me or Jay North or Jon Provost. That was the type that we were the flavor of the month back then. Barry was like this Mr. Moto kind of looking guy. And
he was adorable.
Yeah, so he started working even more. I mean, he he actually does. There's a scene of him in Rally Around the Flag where he ate some pennies or something, and Joanne Woodward and the guy that's the plumber are shaking him upside down. And if you look real quickly at him, it's not the other kid, it's Barry.
It's Barry.
They kept that shot in.
He made it into not only the movie, but the trailer.
He made the cut.
Yeah,
he made the trailer. He went on and did Papa's Delicate Condition.
But you know what? Let me tell you something about Barry and Ernie. I got glasses around the time where Ernie had joined the family. And there were always scenes when he would get into bed and he would take off his glasses, and like they just really stuck with me, as if, it's okay to have glasses, and this is just what some kids have, and it's actually kind of cool. And so Barry sort of led the way for me.
That's
excellent.
Yeah,
I think Barry's character, broke the way for it to be okay for kids to have glasses, and you're a kid too. And, it's how TV works. I mean, not just with glasses, but hiring all kinds of people on there that you wouldn't see in normal life kind of open the door to say, hey, this is okay. Or if it's good enough for the Douglas family, it's good enough for me.
These are the people in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
All right. We got Please Don't Eat the Daisies. We're Doris Day.
Please Don't Eat the Daisies. Well, I got that because of that reel, the Skippy reel. And I was hired because of that. And I got to play one of three sons on that. Well, there was a baby too. But Flip Mark, Charlie Herbert, we were the three boys.
I mean, that
was fun to work with her, and she was great to work with. And because she was playing the mother, she spent considerable time with us, I think, trying to bond with the kids who were going to be in the scenes. And, you know, she'd let us crawl all over. And I remember she brought cards one day and taught us some card game.
Wow.
She brought horseshoes another day, and we were doing horseshoes all the time. And then when it came time to learn the song, you know, she personally took us aside and we'd go over the lyrics. And, you know, she was trying to show us how to do this dance and stuff. So, yeah, she was a very gracious lady, and really fun to work with her. And occasionally through my career, I'd run into her and say hello and like, I don't know if you remember me, because I was about that high, had real blonde hair. I mean, my hair probably for most of my life, except for the last 8-10 years, it was almost black. You know, if you watch My Three Sons, my hair goes from platinum blonde to black hair.
Oh, wow.
So I looked so remarkably different at the end than I did in the beginning. And then it's kind of stayed that color through my 30s, 40s, 50s. And finally, I don't know what happened.
You're back to blonde.
Exactly.
At least I got,
Back to blonde.
I got some. At least
All right,
I got
Lisa,
a few hairs.
What do you got?
Okay, so what about the adventure? Well, he kind of told us about that. So how about how the West was won? Well, he sort of told us about that too.
About that. So let's go to the cartoon or the animation series Roman Holidays. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah, in those days, I think My Three Sons was over by then. So I was just a freelance actor. You know, that's a whole story in itself. One minute you're a big star. You have 60 million people watching you every week, and you know, people in the industry too. It's not just, you know, people that are in Poughkeepsie or Pittsburgh or something, but everybody in the industry was a kid once, and you know, they're either my age or maybe a little older. So obviously they knew who My Three Sons was and the cast and all that. So, you know, sometimes they would be startled to have me coming in a room and auditioning. They would be nervous. Just because I had done so much work, and because of My Three Sons being on for 12 years and almost 400 episodes, which was an incredible amount of work. And, you know, we were indelibly imprinted in everybody's minds because of that. So the strange part was the show, we finally found out it's being canceled, and we finished off the season, and suddenly I'm like gainfully unemployed. And then I suddenly realized as an actor, I'm back to square one. There's no preferential treatment.
And it's the brink of your adult life of you trying to figure out who you are and what are you.
You're just one of 10,000 guys in Hollywood trying to get your next job.
Yeah,
you know,
but you're also trying to you're also trying to figure out that the man you're becoming.
Right. How old were you? 22, 20?
Yeah, about 22, going on 23. And, you know, I that's what I was saying. I looked, depending what you remember of the show, I could look 9 years old, or I could look 15 or 16, 17. And, you know, by 22, 23, I looked pretty much like how I was going to look.
Yeah.
But, you know, forgetting all that, just saying you're an actor in Hollywood, now what are you going to do? I remember my agent called me, and I guess about a week or two went by, and I'm like sitting there going, geez, you know, I gotta figure this out now. And he said, well, you know, I didn't want to call you right away. He said, do you think you'd be ready to go out and interview for another part? I'm like, oh, God, yeah, whatever it is, send me out. So he goes, okay, well, you got an interview tomorrow, and I'm going to send you out on it. And anyway, I hung up the phone, and wow, this is going to be weird. So I walked in, and, you know, it wasn't for another movie, wasn't for a starring role, wasn't for even a guest part on another TV series. It was for a McDonald's commercial.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, I look around the room, and there's about 200 other guys that look like me, about my age, all talking about, you know, this hamburger where there's lettuce, cheese, tomato on a sesame seed bun with secret sauce or whatever it was, you know. So I think I was startled at that point. And then after that, the realities sunk in that these are the kind of things you're going to be going out on. And if you're going to continue on, you know, you can't just sit around waiting for some primo part or another part in a TV series. You just got to do whatever's coming up, and you better go in and fight for it. You know, you better have your full attention and act like however bad I thought I wanted my message, you better want to sell that hamburger and pickles.
You better be enthusiastic about the pickle.
Yeah, you got to be enthusiastic about that pickle. So, yeah, I had to literally change everything about myself, and especially your mind and your perception of yourself in the industry, because you are just like every other guy walking in the door.
So you book
at least got some credits.
Sure,
so that was good.
So you book the Roman holidays. You book an animation.
Yeah, that was one of the things I went out and I auditioned for. It was just for what they call a voiceover part. Of course, I knew who Hanna-Barbera was. I used to play hooky when I was a kid, staying home watching Rough and Ready and Huckleberry Hound, Quick Draw McGraw. So I was out for a series they were creating called Roman Holidays, which were just people. We weren't like some fuzzy little animals or chipmunks or anything like that. And I went in, auditioned, and I think my voice was, I would guess it was more recognizable than I thought it was. And they just wanted kind of a youthful sounding voice. And I got the part of the son on it. Happiest Holiday was my name.
That's so
and,
cool.
So we shot it. Dave Willock was one of the guys. Dom DeLuise was there. He wasn't one of the main characters, but he would do voices. Maybe he was, come to think about it. Mickey Dolenz did kind of odd job voices because there was always more than just the original cast. So it was kind of interesting how different people would come in. And then there were 5 or 6 regular cast members. But you'd come in and we'd read through the script. And sometimes there were problems that they would fix and you correct the script on the spot. We'd take a break for maybe about a half hour, come back and record it, which would take maybe an hour or two. And you're in and out and by 12 noon, we were out of there. Come in at 8, out at 12, and made a whole day's pay, and
no makeup.
Went on. And I figured, for me, I thought, well, nobody will see it because it's on. It's going to be on at 7 in the morning, so who watches that? But I was also going to school then. I was at Los Angeles City College, going to college there. And I remember on a break, some guy walked up to me. I was waiting in the hallway to go back in, and he goes, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Sure." So I figured, he recognized me. He's going to say, "Were you on My Three Sons?" But he didn't. He said, "Do you do cartoon voices on Saturday morning for a show called The Roman Holidays?"
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And I had that happen 3 or 4 times. I was surprised. Well, surprised anybody's watching, but surprised that my voice was recognizable.
I love it.
Well, we're going to do a really quick game to end the show, and it's called My Three Sons Guest Star Roulette. We're going to say the name of somebody that guest starred, according to IMDb, on your show, and you can tell us what you remember about, or if you were in any scenes with this person. Martin Sheen.
I remember him being there. I didn't work with him.
Okay.
That was Tim Considine that worked with him. Because he was Tim's age in those days. He was just starting out as Beau Bridges, Sally Kellerman. The show was fertile ground for all these people that were yet to have careers. But, they were happy to have the job. It might have been their first job for all I know.
Right.
Although Gloria Swanson was one of them.
That might have been her last job.
Right.
If you look
Circle
at
of life.
I think on my website somewhere, on my StanleyLivingston.com website, there's
we have it.
page there. Yeah, where it shows you or talks about all the people who were on the show, the ones who were yet to be and became famous. And then there were ones who were, in the twilights of their career and had worked steadily and wanted to continue working. And I think the fact that Fred McMurray could do this show. So it was really hard for a big actor to say, "I can't do a show like that. That's beneath me." Well, Hey, if Fred can do it, you can do it. So we got a lot of people, Jimmy Stewart, Gloria Swanson, Lou Ayres. All kinds of people wanted to come and do the show. So that was amazing that we got to work with all those people.
Do you have a Jimmy Stewart story?
Not so much as that. It was just cool that he was there. I had just seen The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, so I was I thought it was going to be cool to meet the guy who was in that movie because I'm a big Jimmy Stewart fan from back then.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to be in the Air Force Reserves, which he actually was. And Tim, to avoid getting sent to Vietnam, joined the Air Force Reserves. And part of the return was we had to do a show that kind of focused on the Air Force Reserve. So Tim was in his uniform, and Jimmy Stewart came into it and hung out with us. And he probably did it more as a favor to Fred. For all I know, they were buddies. So,
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of these people, that's why they ended up on the show. But a super nice guy. I know I have a picture with him somewhere where he came on. We were shaking hands, and somebody snapped a picture. To this day, I still have that photo.
Ooh.
That is awesome. Well, we're going to wrap up. Where can people find you? I know you do a lot of autograph shows and events where folks can come and meet you. Is there anything coming up that they should know about?
I'm doing a show up in Las Vegas. I think it's next month on the 26th. I think it's called the Gold Coast Hotel. Never done one in Las Vegas. I'm surprised somebody even wants to do one in Las Vegas, but it's a friend of mine, so I'm going to go and support her in the show, and that'll be fun. I was supposed to do the Cherry Blossom Festival this year in Missouri. I'd done it for 3 or 4 years in a row, and somehow something got screwed up, so I guess I'm not doing it till next year. I'm at home. I'm a retired guy, I guess. I don't know.
You never really
"Monkey, you want to
retire
be
from
retired?"
the business. Yes,
Yeah,
you're too young.
I've got lots to do.
Yes.
I've actually got a script I'm working on right
Ooh.
now. And I thought, well, keep threatening to write a biography. So I've been taking notes for it prodigiously for probably the last year or two. So I've got a lot of stories in there that are pretty amazing. Some of the people that I've met or hung out with are little branches of my life that were because I was in showbiz, but these were, it was politics, so that was kind of unusual.
Fascinating.
I was hanging out with like Richard Nixon, if you can imagine that one.
Yikes. Okay.
Write
Yeah,
the book.
yeah.
Write the book. Write the book.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to read our closing credits, Stan, and just thank you so much for joining us. We really
Thank
enjoyed
you
For having me again. I enjoyed my time. Louise and Lisa.
Well,
You guys are great interviewers.
Thank you. You're a great interview.
Yeah, you're so easy to talk
thanks.
to. We want to thank our guest, Stanley Livingston. Our team includes producer Dina Friedman, John Maddox, Mason Brown, Raf Rusak, Jordan Reyes, Haley Freight, and you. Our theme music is by me and John Maddox. I am Louise Palanker here with Lisa Arch and Stan Livingston. Be well and wise. Take care of each other, and we will see you along the media path. Is there something you wanted to add, Stan? I felt like I cut you off.
Well, people want to find out what I'm doing or more about me. I have a website, which is easy. It's my name, StanleyLivingston.com.
We're gonna put that in the show notes for everybody.